University, Professor S.K. Singh Sahab retired. As far as his teaching is concerned, he joined Department of Physics, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh, at a very young age. Sir has more than 50 years of academic, I mean to say that teaching experience. Uh, as far as his research area is concerned, experimental research in physics with very good publications and guided good number of PhD theses to their students. Visited abroad many times and attend the various seminars and conferences, and also became the key resource person of the various seminars and conferences. As far as administrative experience is concerned, Professor S.K. Singh, sir, was the Vice Chancellor of Hemati Nandan Bahura University, Garhwal University. And one of the important and unique thing is that during his tenure, this Garhwal University elevated from state university to central university. And during his tenure of vice chancellorship, he brought so many radical changes in the academics as well as administrative work of the university. That, for example, uh, he has improved the semester system. I will say the implement the semester system, evaluation system, teaching learning system, and of course the development of infrastructural facilities in university and its campus. Uh, he was the chairman of Vice Chancellor Search Committee of Central Universities. He was also the member of ICSR, UDC, and other so many academic bodies. And he was the member of also the NAC committee for the last 7 to 8 years. As far as outreach is concerned, he is a versatile resource person of different universities and colleges and HRDC, and of course HRDC MU Aligarh. Even after retirement, Sir has a very active, and he always shares his own knowledge and such a long checkered experiences of 50 years of teaching. Uh, so participants, his lecture is also, of course, a very motivating. So I think I don't want to take much more time between you and sir. Without any delay, I would like to invite sir, now the mic over to you to speak and discuss on the topic interconnectivity of teaching and research. Thank you very much, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Saab. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. You're very
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So, welcome to this session, my dear participants. I think we are supposed to deliberate on the interconnectivity of research and teaching. This is a subject which is very common. Everybody knows about it, and everybody is sort of practicing it, because most of you are either teaching in a postgraduate college or a state university or a central university, or at least in an institution where there is some teaching as well as some research. I believe that most of you are either conducting research or doing your own research, having some projects, or doing non-project research work, but you are already actively involved in some way or the other with the research activities in your field. So the subject of today's presentation is not new. You are all familiar, but I would like to just inform you what are the developments in this area of interconnectivity of research and teaching in our country as well as in other countries. You know by experience um, and now by your own knowledge of the national education policy, if you have gone through the document, the national education policy uh, categorizes the higher educational institution in three categories: teaching institutions, research institutions, as well as teaching and research institutions. This classification is not new. We always had institutions which were involved in purely teaching, like mainly undergraduate colleges, many of the postgraduate colleges. There are almost no teaching. And then there were institutions which were involved only in research activities. Of course, they were not universities, but they were research institutes. They were created for the purpose of research. Their main um, focus was on research, and that research could be applied research, which will lead to some innovations and patents and commercialization of the output. But then there are another aspect of the research was that purely for the seeking knowledge or for creating knowledge. So, and there are many institutions like that in our country, in various streams of science, technology, engineering, and medicine, agriculture, and many other areas. They are either funded by the Council of Scientific Industrial Research or Indian Space Research or Defense Research or ICAR, Agriculture, or ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research. So obviously they are all getting money from government. In addition to that, there are many institutions which are opened by private industrialists as well as some private donors like Birlas and Tatas and many other for the purely research purposes. You are already familiar that there are many universities which have been opened by private operators. In fact, in the last 20 years, there have been many, probably there are now more private universities than the state universities in our country. And they are opening every day in every state. More universities are opening every day. So you see, we have the institutions whose primary aim is, to our mind, teaching, but research has become an integral part of it. It is not specific to our own country. It is situation is almost same in advanced countries like United States or Europe or France, Japan, China, with one exception. That is, in the Japanese system, all the research institutions are not independent. Well, not all, but most of them, more than 75% of the research institutions operate under universities. So the credit of the research goes to the university because that institution is a part of the university. So there, even though the university has a teaching department as well as it has a research institute under it, while there is no teaching being done in the research institute, while teaching and research both are done in the university system. So Japanese system is unique in that way that all the credit of the research output goes to the universities. So university, you can say they are great universities in teaching as well as in research, but research is not being done in the teaching department of the university. So that's sort of a different model. But the models in the West, in Germany or France or Italy or United States are similar to what we have. For example, if you are familiar or some of you have been to Europe, either to Italy or France or Germany, you know um, uh, that in France there is an CNRS system, Center for Search in French, for CNRS stands for France. Similarly, in Italy, there is the INFN type institutions. They are something like what we have CSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, our Department of Science Technology, our Defense Research. Um, um, you might be more familiar with what we have in Germany, what is called Max Planck institutions. Max Planck institutions are really the institutions opened in the name of Max Planck, who do only research and no teaching is done. So uh, right now, there are models like India, where all three types of institutions are there: teaching, research, and teaching and research both. So it is a pertinent question to ask, what is the relation between the teaching and research in these institutions? I would like to dwell upon a little bit the uh, historical aspects of this subject. That means uh, what is the history of teaching and research in Indian universities? You see, Indian universities are created by are in the present form. These were created by the British people, starting from East India Company to the British Raj. Of course, we had university system in our ancient India, where we had Tachila and Nalanda, and probably Nalanda is in the news because our Prime Minister had only last week opened the new campus of Nalanda University. Though Nalanda University has been in existence for last 15 to 20 years. But the new campus has come up, and if you have followed the news, you will see. You might have read about the various activities which have been carried out at Nalanda almost 2000, almost 1500 years ago when it was established. So some type of research was already there, because of course in Takshila we know it was well known for the research in astronomy, research in economics, research in mathematics, and similarly in Nalanda we had uh, astronomy and philosophy and uh, mathematics. They were well known subjects which were studied there, uh, but they were already seeking knowledge, not research as such. In fact, in those days, not only in those days, but even up to 10th, 11th century, even in the West, the university system was mainly based on uh, really seeking knowledge, not creating knowledge. So really learning and disseminating knowledge. Once you learn what is there to be learned in your subject, uh, whether it is a philosophy or religion or jurisprudence. These were the main areas which were being taught around 13th, 14th century in universities in West. They were either in Germany or in Italy or in France. For example, Paris University is one of the oldest university, or in Cambridge or Oxford. But later in the 18th century, I think German scientist von Humboldt, he advocated that research should be integral part of a university system. That we should not only uh, uh, concentrate on learning and disseminating knowledge, but also we should attempt to create knowledge. Not only create knowledge, but use that knowledge to innovate new things so that it could benefit the society. So you see that tradition of research started in universities in early 18th century, probably in Germany, and then it is spread to the whole West, uh, to Italy, France, and of course to Great Britain, from where we inherited through East India Company, who established 4 universities in 1857, mainly Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, and Delhi. So those universities were established on the model which was being practiced in England conceptually. But practically, it was completely different because aims and objectives of starting the university in India were completely different than the aim and objectives of the Oxford and Cambridge. Because here, creation of knowledge, or research, in other words, was not the main aim of creating universities. Here, the aim of creating universities by the British, by the East India Company, and then by the British Raj was to train Indian people to serve the British Raj, to serve the East India Company. If you read the reports by on higher education or on education by Macaulay and or other his contemporaries, or you read about the debate which was conducted in the British Parliament on the education system of India, then you realize that main aim of the creating higher education institutions in India was to sustain, to create a force, a human resource force, which will sustain the East India Company's hold on India or the British Raj on India. So with that aim, research does not fit in the concept of the university. Even though their own universities in England or in the West were based on this model of almost mandatory research to be done by the teachers of the university. Of course, it is not to say that there was no teaching research done in the university in India, because human mind is very, very inquisitive. So even if research is not required of the teachers, if the teachers have their creative mind, they will really create something, create some knowledge, create something new. And therefore, some research was being done, but it was completely voluntary in a sense that no financial support or no institutional support was given to the researchers working in the university. So that was the model more or less followed until maybe 30, 40 years before independence. Of course, in the later part of British Raj, lot of efforts were made to include research in the universities in various fields, and that was not because the British wanted the Indian universities to be competitive with Oxford or the Cambridge or the Western universities in England or in Germany or in the United States, because by that time the United States had become a formidable force in higher education. But it was forced by the necessities of the World War, because World War II, in which all these countries, United States or Germany or France or even Russia or Britain, even India, were very actively involved. And then they realized that in order to be economically superior to the Germans or Japanese or to that what we call enemy states, you have to be economically strong, and to become economically strong, you have to be very advanced in the scientific research. And since Britain had not that much resources during the World War II and after, they realized that they could use the resources which are available in India. So in India, even around World War II, or even just before that, a lot of research was being encouraged in the Indian universities in the various fields, of defense, in the field of agriculture, in the field of even the nuclear sciences, so on and so forth. So some element of institutional support for the research in Indian universities was already started before independence. And if you read the history of our Indian Council of Medical Research or Indian Council of Agriculture Research or IITs or Indian Council of Technical Education, all these things, how they were established, then you will know that the seeds of these institutions or seeds of these creative activities were already present at the time of British Raj, which was taken up very enthusiastically after the independence, because our first Prime Minister was very scientifically oriented. He wanted that the scientific attitude should be developed in India. But the challenges were enormous. And because of those enormous challenges, not much emphasis was given on the research. What were those challenges? If you read the statistics, you will find the literacy rate was very poor in India at the time of independence as compared to other countries. So first priority of our country after independence was to see that education, to see that higher education, not only higher education, but education as such, reaches to every section of the society, to the poor people, the people living in remote areas, not accessible to cities where schools were there. So the emphasis was on education, but priority was given to primary education and secondary education. Higher education was not neglected, but that was not priority area. And even higher education, the research was not the priority area, even though it was desirable. It was desirable that research being done, which can compete with the international standards, but that was not priority area. To ensure that research activities are not neglected completely, while trying to make education or higher education accessible to everybody in our country, many institutions, research institutions were open. And research was supported financially with the aim that these research institutions will do only research. They will recruit scientists, not professors or lecturers or readers at that time, but scientists. And you know that many laboratories were established under the umbrella of Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. And their main focus was research in applied areas. Applied areas means applied physics, applied chemistry, applied mathematics, engineering, all branches of engineering. IITs were opened. IITs meant really Indian Institute of Technology, which means that technology should be developed. And because of the technologies, the industrialization of the country and scientific temper, development of scientific temper, and establishment of industries needed engineers. So that is why IITs were open. In our first 5-year plan, which was mainly based on the Russian system, many heavy industries were open. And those industries needed engineers, and that's why engineering institutions were open in many parts of the country, IITs and many regional engineering institutions. But you see, emphasis there was, again, mainly on applied, not for the creation of knowledge, not for the excellence, but to innovate things, to create things, so that we can produce things which will be beneficial for the society. So even though government our institution realized the importance of research, it was not mandatory. It was welcome, it was supported to some extent, but it was not priority area. So just after independence, we had many universities which are open. University Grants Commission was established to regulate the university, the higher education system in colleges and universities. Some encouragement was given. But main emphasis, I said, was on making the education or higher education accessible to every section of the society. With this aim, research was done in the universities and colleges, but the research content was minimal. I cannot quantify the number, 20% or 30% persons in the university were doing research, but there was some research being done. Research was being done by professors on their own, with very, very meager grant from the government. But situation changed quite swiftly, because most of the teachers those days, and even now, even more so today, are recruited not based on their teaching abilities, but based on their research output. As Dr. Aftab Saab said, that I have been involved in teaching for 50 years. So I was recruited in the university system in 1970s, almost more than 50 years ago. But I know even 10 years before me, when I was a student at the university, I did my undergraduate and postgraduate both from a university department. My teachers were also appointed on the basis of what research they have done. So research was a very important criterion for recruiting teachers, whose main job was teaching. So you see that while you are recruited for teaching, you are being judged on your research. So it was not written explicitly, but research was a integral part of teaching profession. Because your research is evaluated, you are judged based on your research, you are promoted based on your research. Most of you are teaching in the universities and colleges. So you may remember your own recruitment, you may remember your own promotion, the interviews, the type of questions which are asked in interviews. You see, mostly, if there are 10 questions in your interview, probably 8 of them will be on your research activities, or maybe only 1 or 2 questions will be on your teaching, mainly based on what courses you are teaching and how you are teaching certain things, so on and so forth. So you see, research has become an integral part now in the teaching profession. So, is it desirable? Is it desirable that all teachers should involve in research? What is the relation between teaching and research? Do the good teachers make good researchers? Or the other way around, good researchers make good teachers? Is there any relation between teaching and research? If there is any relation, what is that relationship? What is the nature of that relationship? If I ask a statistical question or quantitative question, I may ask for correlation. What is the correlation between teaching and research? First questions, are they correlated at all? Are they completely independent? If they are correlated, what is the correlation? Correlation is positive or negative. It is small or large, or it is negligible. So these are the questions which are asked, but the answers are difficult. Answers are difficult for many reasons. Answers are difficult for, as I said, for many reasons. And those reasons are conceptual. They are not practical. They are at basic level. Why? I would like to explain that to you. And that probably is something which you might have wondered yourself while working in your institutions in the last 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, whatever your seniority is, in your own institution, in your own department, in your own university, you might have wondered about this relationship. That why your recruitment or your promotion is judged mainly on your research activities, while you may not be given any facility for the research, either financial or infrastructure or even emotional support. Sometimes you like even the emotional support from your institutions, from your superiors, from your heads, from your vice chancellors, from the principals. Not to talk, what to talk of financial and infrastructure. As I said, emotionally you are not supported by these authorities. So why, if there is no support like this, and the weightage is given is too large? So as I said, these are the basic questions. So let me come back to that. Why this is very difficult question to answer about the interconnectivity of research and teaching. But difficult questions doesn't mean that they cannot be answered. You have to work harder. You have to work even more honestly to find out more rationally, more scientifically to answer difficult questions. But I have found in my literature survey on the subject that not much effort has been given to do research on the interconnectivity of the teaching and research. In fact, almost no work has been done in our own country, but very little work has been done in the West or in the Japan and China. Whatever material I could gather was mainly from West, that is from United States, UK, or Germany, or Australia, or New Zealand, countries like that, or Denmark or Sweden. But that is also very, very meager. And from there, I have gathered that that is very difficult to answer this question. And now I will come to explain why it is difficult. After I deliberate on this, you will realize that it's very, very easy to conceptualize why it is difficult. You must have faced this problem yourself or for your colleagues. So let me come to it. Scientifically, or mathematically, or in this sense, statistically, how do you do research on a subject like this? Right? You do sample survey. You ask people who are the stakeholders of teaching and research. Who are the stakeholders? The most important stakeholders are the students. Then there are parents. Then there are colleagues whom you work. Then there are your peers, like your principal, your vice chancellor, or your administrative heads. And then there are funding agencies which fund your research. So you see, these are the stakeholders from which a sample is collected. But of course, you take the sample of these stakeholders, but what questions you ask? How to evaluate? How to evaluate teaching? How to evaluate research? Let me be more specific. How to evaluate good teaching? how to evaluate good research, and then look for correlation. So how do you define a good research or a good teaching? You have to define certain parameters because you have to quantify them. You have to do a mathematical analysis, a statistical analysis. So you have to define certain parameters which will define good teaching. What are the parameters to define good teaching? In fact, over the years, there are no well-established parameters to define good teaching. You ask the question yourself. How do you qualify to be a good teacher? What are the criteria? Is the good result of the students from your class is a criteria? Or maintenance of good discipline in your class is a criteria of good teacher? Or the popularity of this teacher among the students, popularity of the teacher among colleagues, or popularity of the teacher among their peers, employers, is a criteria for good teacher? What is the criteria for a good teacher? Let's take some example. Let's take good result of your class. You see now a semester system, or even before the semester system in many institutions, the good result can be achieved by many means other than good teaching. For example, setting up an easier question paper. Many students will pass. The result of your class will be good. Or lenient marking. Or nowadays, we are suffering from other ailments like copying or leaking of papers. There are many ways to get good result. So to be a devil's advocate, I can say that, of course, good results should reflect good teaching, but there are many other ways to get good result. So many people doubt that good examination result may not be a foolproof criteria of good teaching. Let me come to the having good discipline. If a teacher maintains very good discipline in the class, this is not an indication that he is a good teacher. A bad teacher can also maintain very good discipline by many other means. These days, it is very easy to maintain a good discipline in the class by a teacher who is not a good teacher. I will not go into details because you already know what are the other means by which a teacher can be very popular other than being a good teacher. So-called good teacher, because that is what we are trying to define. What I'm trying to say that there are no foolproof parameters to define a good teacher. So if you don't have good parameters to define a good teacher, how will you define a good teacher? Similarly, in the research, of course, the research things are not so bad. There are well-known parameters which define a good researcher. But those parameters, again, are not indisputable. There are a lot of people who doubt those parameters. For example, is the number of papers a criteria for a good researcher? If you publish a large number of papers, could you qualify to be a good teacher? Not necessarily. Because some people could be very good researcher by publishing only 20 papers in their lifetime. Most important example is being given of Einstein, who did not have many papers as compared to many other of his colleagues, but he is the greatest scientist of the century. So what is important is the quality of paper. You might publish only one paper in 5 years, but its quality is very good. It is published in a very high impact journal. And hundreds of citations. Everybody wants to learn. Then who decides the quality? Of course, if there is a foolproof way of defining quality, then it is fine. But if there is no foolproof way, since you are working in the higher education system, most of you must be in colleges or in the university, you are governed by the University Grants Commission. You may be all familiar that recently there are recently their UGC has brought a list of journals, recognized journals. Means that if you publish in those journals, only then your publication will be counted. But you also know how controversial that list is. Right? A lot of people feel that there are a lot of journals in that which are prize journals. They are not what they are named, but they are included by the committee who are responsible for preparing that list. So defining quality or deciding the quality of paper is a very subjective thing. So that criteria is also not foolproof. I think another criteria which everybody accepts, not everybody, but most people accept, is if you get many awards, either national or international, then you are supposed to be a very good researcher. But we already know the dynamics of national awards, how they are given, how they are depend upon the government of the time, how the awards are given. I am not saying that is true for all awards. Of course, some awards are above all these. And that also goes for the international awards. The same dynamics works at the international level also. So that criteria of awards is still a good criteria, but again, it is not accepted by everybody. I would like to qualify that all the people who get the awards are very good scientists, but that does not mean that people who don't get those awards are not good scientists. In fact, there are many scientists which are as good as those people who are getting award, but they don't get any award in their whole lifetime. There are many examples of that. There are many examples even in the Nobel Prizes. What to talk about the lesser awards. So while the award-winning scientists are good, they are good researchers, but doesn't mean that the people who are not getting the award are not good researchers. There are many good researchers among those who are not getting those awards, because the awards are very limited. At the same time, there are some people who are not as good researchers as the award demands them to be. So again, that criteria is also controversial. But as I said in the beginning, still the parameters for defining a good researcher is more on a scientific ground than a good teacher. So what I'm trying to say is that while parameters for good research are not foolproof, are not well defined, parameters of a good teacher are also not, rather poorly defined. Then the parameters are not defined so well, then how you compare them? So that is why the difficulty is. That is why the difficulty is in comparing or finding the interconnectivity or finding the correlation between teaching and research, good teaching and good, good research. That is the dilemma. But as I said, that does not mean that one should not do research on this. As I said, some research has been done in United States and United Kingdom mainly, also in Germany and Australia, motivated by certain aims and objectives. Because you see, these days, by these days I mean the last 50 to 100 years, research, especially in science and engineering, medical medicine or agriculture, has become very expensive. So you need funding. There are funding agencies, private funding agencies, industry funding agencies, as well as government funding agencies. So you need a lot of money to do research. And the industries or the government who are giving you money, giving the fund, they want to make sure that their money, their funds are utilized usefully. First, they will like to be sure that what research is being done by the researcher is very productive. And if he is a teacher teaching in the university, if he is a university professor, he will like that his research support improves his teaching. Or he will like to know whether his funding for research has any effect on improvement of his teaching. So the funding agencies were interested in knowing this correlation. Because if this correlation is positive, then the funding agencies or the industries or the government will get double benefit, because they will get good researchers, they will get good patents, they will get good discoveries, they will get good awards. Other than they will produce better teachers, which will serve the humanity in the long run. Because if a teacher is improved by doing research, then he will be teaching a generation. He will improve his teaching for the whole generation for almost 30 to 40 years, as long as he is the teaching profession. So the stakes of the funding agencies were very high, and they really wanted to know the correlation between teaching and research. Not only that, their aim was, when they formed committees, there many committees were formed in the United States and United Kingdom to see the connectivity between research and teaching, was not only to find the real situation, but also suggest ways in which the researchers could be better teachers. So all those committees which were appointed to look for this correlation, look for this connectivity, were also given a task to recommend measures so that researchers could become good teachers. Well, how those recommendations were followed or were taken up by the various institutions or the various governments was, to my knowledge, not taken up. And probably that stopped in making recommendation, because the results of this research was not very, very conclusive. And the reason that was not conclusive was, as I said in the beginning, there is not a simple answer. There's not a simple answer that good researcher will be a good teacher, or good researcher will be a bad teacher, or researcher teaching is not related with each other. So it's not like yes, no type answer. Since I have been involved in the teaching and research for the last 50 years, I would like to give you my personal opinion before I let you know, before I tell you the result of these researches. And I think many of you who are, most of you who are working in the colleges or universities are also doing research, probably would agree with my my views. Hopefully, not necessarily. You don't have to agree, but I believe that you'll agree. My own feeling is that a researcher, a good researcher, should become a good teacher. So the correlation should be positive. Whether it's a large or small, that is a different thing, but it should be positive. And I will tell you why. You see, the teaching and research, both are intellectual activity at the highest level. And human mind is inquisitive. Human mind asks questions. In fact, a child starts his life by asking questions, many questions around him. Many of you will be parents, maybe most of you are parents at this time. You might have faced many questions from your children. They start asking questions from the age 3 or 4, when they start comprehending things. And they keep asking questions forever. So a human mind by nature is inquisitive, asks questions, and it seeks answers. So that starts an intellectual activity of human mind. And one of the aspects of intellectual activity is creation of knowledge. In fact, we all know when we send our children to school or to college or to university, what is the aim? Aim is to learn. Learn what? Learn the existing knowledge. What knowledge has been created by others? What knowledge has been created by others till date, right from when the humanity started? So the aim and objective of the student or the children going to school or a college is to learn what knowledge has already been created. So you learn the knowledge which is existing. Some of them, like yourself, become teachers. And what is the main objective of teaching? Is to disseminate that knowledge. Whatever knowledge you have learned right from your childhood to your PhD, job of the teacher is to disseminate, to spread that knowledge to others. So it is a level of intellectual activity, you can say second level. First level is to learn what knowledge is there. Second level is to disseminate that knowledge in an effective way to the people who are ignorant, people who don't know, teach them. Higher level again is to create knowledge, which does not exist right now, to create knowledge. That is where the research comes in. So the teaching and research are various levels of intellectual activity. and their intellectual activity at the highest level. I mean, I'm not talking about cut and paste and going to Google and finding. I'm really talking about the learning what exists, disseminating what you learned, creating what does not exist. So they are all intellectual activity at the highest level. So they must be related with each other. They should be related with each other because being intellectual activity of highest level of the human mind. So they should be related. And the relation should be positive because by doing research, you know what is important in your field, at least in which you are interested or in which you are interested. And obviously, you are teaching only those subjects in which you are interested. Right? For example, if you are a social science teacher, you will teach a subject of social science, or science teacher, professor of science, then you will teach one of them, physics or mathematics or chemistry. Even in physics or in economics, there's certain topics in which you will specialize and you will be doing research in that, and you will also be teaching that at the highest level to the postgraduate students who are teaching every subject at the lower level. So in your field of activity, in your field of intellectual activity, if you are active in research, you know what is important. What is important to create something new. Okay. So once you know what is important in your own subject, in your own narrow field of specialization, then you will know what is the most important topics in your field to teach to the students. So obviously, especially in postgraduate teaching, there should be a very positive correlation between research and teaching. But once you percolate to the undergraduate teaching, this positive correlation should persist. Maybe this positive correlation is, let's say, 0.7. If you know some statistics at 0.7 level at postgraduate, then it should be maybe lower level at 0.4, 0.3 at the undergraduate level. So there should be a correlation between research and teaching. At least in science and engineering subjects, which should be positive and which should be large. That's my feeling. Moreover, if you are a researcher and if you are teaching, then your teaching can help you being a better researcher. Because when you teach a class of 50 or 100 students in undergraduate class, or maybe 20 students in postgraduate class, you are teaching a heterogeneous group of students where level of understanding is quite different. Maybe if I grade from 1 to 10, then there could be students whose understanding level differs from 4 to 8. Some would be very good, some would be not so good, some will be average. So you while you teach a class of 50 students with different level of understanding, you know how to manage the human mind. You know how to convey new ideas to a diverse group of people and how to handle them. This helps you to comprehend difficulty at different levels. And I think this comprehension, this training of comprehension is very important in research. Because in research, suppose you have been active in research for 30, 40 years, you face problems of different nature. Some problems are very difficult, some problems are very easy, some problems are not so easy, not so difficult. So all sort of problems you are facing while doing in your research career or while guiding the students for your PhD or MPhil or MSc projects, so on and so forth. So by teaching, you get experience of how to manage human brains, human minds of different level of understanding. And I think that helps you to solve problems having different level of difficulty. So there is a correlation. Also, teaching a postgraduate students for a researcher helps to identify the future students for a research scientist. So instead of groping into dark for getting students for their PhD students, they know which are the students which are better suited for your type of research. For example, if you're experimental scientists, then you pick up those students who have experimental aptitude for research. If you're a theoretical scientist, are you a mathematical scientist? Then you, from the class of 20 students, you select those students who are uh, who have aptitude for mathematical and theoretical sciences. So that helps a research student, a research guide, a research professor to pick his students for his future project. So you see, the teaching helps your research. And I said in the beginning, the research also helps your teaching. So this correlation should exist, and this correlation should be positive. That has been my experience, my personal experience, and experience of many people whom I have interacted, either in India or in Europe. I have worked in Germany, I have worked in Spain, I have worked in Italy, I have worked in the United States. I have worked with people from many nationalities, Chinese, Japanese, Europeans, Americans. And I found that this sort of things mostly are true, that the correlation between research and teaching is positive. And it is large in my field of research, that is in physics. As a little exercise, you can also try it in your own department. You can try to find out in your department, in your college, in your university, from your friends, what is the correlation? And I'm sure that you will find that it's positive and probably large in some subjects, small in some. But as I said, that is my experience, that is my feeling. It need not be it need not be true for everybody. To give you one counter example, if a professor is very good researcher, then he gets a lot of money from funding agencies, from CSIR or from Department of Science and Technology, or from Indian Social Science Research, or ICR, or Department of Atomic Energy, Indian Space Research Organization, depending upon its subject. Or if you are in geology or geography, then from Ministry of Arts and Environment Sciences, you get a lot of support. So you get a lot of support, you have more students. So you spend a lot of time in managing research. You know, a lot of time in buying equipment. You have to tenders, you manage the tenders, buy equipment, you negotiate with companies. Then you recruit technical staff, recruitment procedure, you have to decide, you have to do everything. There's no agency which does it for you. Okay, then there's a field work. You send those people to field. So if you are so busy in your research, you don't find time for teaching. So what you do, you delegate your teaching to your subordinates, your students or some other people. And obviously when the students know that so and so professor is very famous, he is going to teach him but he doesn't turn up in the class, then obviously students are very, very disappointed. So more successful researcher or more good researcher you become, you have find less time to spend with the students, to spend more time managing your research lab. Unfortunately, you happen to get some award. Then you get involved in the government agencies. You sit on the committees all the time. When students come to you, your secretary tells them that you are in a meeting, you have gone to Delhi or you have gone to some state capital, you are in some delegation going abroad. You know, sort of your activities expand other than your teaching. So you end up neglect teaching. So that shows that the good researcher neglects teaching and therefore it becomes a bad teacher. So this sort of negative, as I said, counter example. So this will lead to negative correlation between research and teaching. So this interconnectivity, I mean, is not beneficial, at least for the students. May be beneficial for the researcher. So as I said, it's difficult to answer this question, and that is what turned out to be in those researches which were done in United States and United Kingdom. So let me come to the conclusion of the researches which has been done on the interconnectivity of teaching and research. As I said, it's difficult to answer this question, and I have explained why. But it could be answered in a limited way. As I told you that while it may not be possible to answer the general question, because it depends again upon it depends upon the discipline. What is the correlation between teaching and research? For sciences, is it same for sciences and humanities subjects? Obviously not. Because professors of science have more personal interaction with the students, especially at the postgraduate level, than the professors in the humanities, for example, in Hindi or Urdu or English. In general, maybe there may be some professors who are in more personal contact with the students than the teachers in science. But in general speaking, because you have a laboratory to conduct, there is 1 hour teaching of a theory course in a day, then there will be 3 hours of laboratory course in which the teachers will be in contact with the student for 3 hours. While in a classroom teaching, he is in contact with the students for 1 hour, and even that he is not really in contact, he is lecturing. But in a laboratory class, he is really in contact with the students for 3 hours. So obviously the science teachers are more in contact with the students. So there is a better communication between the students. So the correlation between science should be different than the correlation between the teaching and research in a humanities subject. So it depends upon the subject. So you cannot answer the question in general. You have to tell what are you talking about. We're talking about the science, engineering, or medicine, or you're talking about the philosophy and Hindi or Urdu or English subjects like that. So it is very subject oriented. So if you come to the subject, then you can answer this question. And it has been answered. The correlation has been found to be positive and large in science subjects. It has been found to be positive and small in humanities and other subjects. So it is subject dependent. The glaring example is, let's compare with the Hindi and medicine. Obviously, in medicine, the teacher is more in contact with the students than even in the science, because they have laboratory class, then they have OPD, they have then wards, then they have teaching. So there are more interaction between the teacher and the student. So the question cannot be answered in general. You have to specify the discipline. Then it also depends upon the class. Even in the science class, the correlation between teaching and research would be different in a postgraduate class than in an undergraduate class. Because in a postgraduate class, there are 20 to 30 students, and the students know about the research activities of the teacher. In undergraduate class, there are 100 students or 50 students while a teacher is teaching. The students don't even know that your teacher is doing research or not. Forget about the correlation. They are not even aware that your teacher is doing any research or not at all. And the teachers don't interact that much with the undergraduate students. They don't tell about their activities, other academic activities and the class. They come to the class at 9 o'clock, maybe at 9:15 in the 9 to 10 class, and leave at 10 or probably earlier. So almost there is no interaction. So students are completely in dark about the other academic activities of the teacher. So there's no almost correlation. So the correlation also depends upon whether you are talking about undergraduate class teaching, undergraduate teaching, or a postgraduate teaching. So it depends upon the discipline. It depends upon the class. It also depends upon the institution. Some of the institutions are very liberal in supporting the research. So the researchers can do the research and the teaching because they have good support from the administration, from the principal of the college, or from the vice chancellor of the university. The administration is very liberal in granting him leave or granting him financial assistance so that he can go and attend conferences, talk about research, attend the meetings, and come back and do his teaching. But there may be some institutions which are very strict. Maybe they don't allow you leave. They don't give any funds. So his research suffers. So even a good researcher becomes a bad researcher because he doesn't get opportunity to do research while teaching. It's more true for private institutions. Private institutions normally require very heavy teaching from their professors, and they don't. They're not very liberal in giving leave or giving money for the teachers to do research and to do attend meetings. So you see, it depends also upon the institution. So it depends upon discipline. It depends upon the class. It depends upon the nature of institutions, whether it is a state government or a central government or a private institution or a deemed institutions. So it's very difficult to answer this question. But some answers can be given once you specify. That is why I don't believe in these NAC greetings, because NAC greeting means maybe that an institution has a grade B+, but maybe it is A++ in certain subjects. Maybe in English, institution is great. Has great teachers with great achievements, with the students' great achievement. But the institution may not be good in maybe say physics or mathematics. So overall grading really doesn't tell about the institution. So suppose, but the teaching, a student wants to do a master's in English. He will like to know which is the best institution in the country for English, not overall institution. Suppose somebody wants to do mathematics, so he will like to know which institution is the best in mathematics. He doesn't care for the overall rating of the institution. So you see, these things are very, very difficult to answer. In fact, I will tell you a story which student of science will appreciate, especially the physics student. Probably might have heard of Max Planck. Max Planck was one of the greatest scientists of the century, as big as Einstein. One of the students, I will not name because you will not know, he joined University of Berlin, was a very bright student in what we will call in India BSc first year, in the first year, and he went to the first class taken by his teacher. And he disliked the teacher so much that he went to the head of department and he said, I don't want to study here in this university because the teacher is very bad. And he said, what do you mean? He's Max Planck. He's one of the greatest scientists and you say he's a bad teacher. He said, I don't care who he is, but he's a bad teacher. I don't want to study here. So it is a story of 1930s. He's also very great scientist, though not Nobel laureate. So he left the University of Berlin and went to University of Munich. Just because first few lectures he did not like, no matter who the teacher was. The teacher was the most famous scientist of the century, but he left the university. So that teacher was good. Berlin was top university. But in physics, Munich was best for teaching. So he went to University of Munich and not to Berlin. So you see, these gradings in that sense do not have any meaning. So similarly, it is between the interconnectivity of teaching and research. This should be also, as I said, discipline-wise. What discipline you are talking about. Now to come to the end, I will say that most important stakeholder in evaluating this interconnectivity in teaching and research are the students. Everybody would agree with that. Because while evaluating the connectivity between teaching and research, other than students, other stakeholders' opinion could be subjective. Whether it is your principal or your vice chancellor or your funding agencies, their judgment could be subjective. But the students are the real ones where they have no stake. Their assessment between interconnectivity of teaching and research would be very objective. Because they have nothing to gain or nothing to lose by being very honest. But many of the students sample in the researches which were done in United States and United Kingdom or in Australia, the sample size was not very large. Sample size was small because students refused to participate. Because most of the students, especially in undergraduate classes, say that we don't know about the research activity of the teacher. So how can we evaluate whether his teacher is a good teacher or not, whether he's a researcher or not, because we don't have enough data. So especially in undergraduate classes, the students don't know about the teacher's academic activities. So I would request you that if you are teaching undergraduate class, or if you're teaching a postgraduate class, at least take some time to interact with the students. Tell them about your own activities, your academic activities. What are your academic activities? What are your achievements? What are the achievements of your students? What is the importance of work, your work which you are doing, your academic work which you are doing? What is the recognition of academic work you are doing? Give them some material about your research work. Give them material of your achievements. Give them material of importance of the work which you are doing for your subject, for the humanity, for the society, whatever. So do indulge in some interaction with your students when you teach a class for one semester or for 1 year, whatever the system you are following. So interact with the students, both in undergraduate and postgraduate, because that will give the researchers and the authorities a better way to find the connectivity between the research and teaching. Because the students don't know about the research activities of the teacher, how will they evaluate? And they are the most important stakeholders. They are most important aspect of the sample of doing this research. So that's very important. So that's something I will like to request you all, that when you go to the class in the next semester, in the next year, take some time off from the regular teaching, whether you are teaching laboratory or you are teaching classroom, doing classroom teaching. Interact with the students, tell them about the such activities, so that the funding agencies would know the result about. Because you see, if you find out, or if our community can show that good research leads to good teaching, this will be a great boost directly to research and indirectly to teaching. Lot of money will flow into research, because the funding agencies, the government, or the NGOs, or the trusts which fund research would realize that their money is going not only to improve research, but to improve teaching, which is going to reform a generation of students. So I think it's very important that this correlation comes out to be positive and comes out to be large. It will be a great boon to higher educational institutions to improve the undergraduate teaching as well as the postgraduate teaching. So please do this. Another advice I will give you is that for your own satisfaction, now I am no more active in proactive teaching. I'm retired, but if you are teaching, you should also do little exercise in your own department, in your own university, to see what is the correlation between teaching and research, at least in your institutions. Maybe today I am talking about it. Maybe tomorrow or day after, or maybe 2 years later, you will be asked to talk about this. So you will be in a better position to talk about the interconnectivity of teaching and research based on your own experience. So do a little exercise in your institution, in your department, to see what is the relation between, what is the interconnectivity relation between teaching and research? Is it positive, it is negative, or it is neutral? That will be good for the subject and for yourself, and also for the institutions. So with this, I think I will I'll stop my presentation, and I hope that you have enjoyed my lecture, and I thank you for your patience for last almost hour and a half, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Students, if you have
Thank
any
you, sir.
query, please.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Sir,
you,
I
sir.
have
Thank you
something to
so
ask you,
much,
sir.
sir. Very informative lecture. Thank you.
Okay, Aftab sir, you have to say something?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you on behalf of HRDC, sir, for your detailed and explain very precious, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you all.
We can join other session now, sir.
Yes, yes.
8:30.
Yes,